Imagine a suspension bridge, right? And it's holding thousands of tons of rush hour traffic.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now, imagine that while the cars are actually driving over it, the bridge is actively dismantling its own steel cables and like rebuilding them atom by atom in real time.
Which is terrifying, by the way.
Right. It sounds completely impossible, but that exact structural nightmare is literally happening inside your body right now.
Yeah, it's this relentless microscopic battle between creation and destruction. And if that process stumbles for even a moment, I mean, the architectural integrity of everything we are just begins to fail.
Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are exploring the ultimate architectural marvel of the human body, which is collagen. And, just to be clear right up front for you listening, we are not talking about, like, those trendy skincare supplements.
Right, not the powders you blend into your morning smoothie.
Exactly. We're looking at the foundational scaffolding of your entire physical existence. I mean, collagen actually makes up roughly 25 to 30% of your total body protein.
It is the predominant structural material we are made of. Without it, we quite literally dissolve.
We have a massive stack of sources to go through today. We're pulling from MIT dissertations on the biomechanics of the human voice, some really comprehensive biomedical reviews on extracellular matrix pathologies, and, well, some incredibly counterintuitive research into enzymatic degradation.
There's some really mind-bending stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission is to figure out how this scaffolding works, how it breaks down, and what we can actually do about it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can understand how our tissues age or scar, we kind of need to understand the raw building materials, right?
Yeah, that is the perfect starting line. Because while they are both collagen, they're fundamentally different materials engineered for completely different jobs. The research focuses heavily on two main players, type I and type 3 collagen.
Right, and type I is the tough one, yeah. Exactly. Type I collagen is designed for intense tensile strength. It strongly resists being pulled apart. Type 3, on the other hand, is built for matrix flexibility. The literature actually refers to it as a homotrimmer.
Wait, homotrimmer, visualize that for me. What does that actually look like if we zoomed in?
So picture 3 separate molecular chains, specifically alpha-1 chains, braided together into this right-handed triple helix.
Okay, a braid.
Yeah. But it's not a rigid braid. The way those 3 identical chains overlap, it allows the overall structure to bend and yield. Its primary job is basically to give a tissue mechanical give and flexibility. Type I, conversely, packs into these incredibly dense, thick, rigid fibrils.
So if we look at this like a skyscraper being built, type I is the rigid steel rebar that gives the tower its sheer vertical strength.
Right.
And type 3 is like the flexible rubber joints they engineer into the foundation so a building can sway in a heavy wind or an earthquake without just snapping in half.
That analogy totally works, but we have to take it a step further. Because the body doesn't just throw steel and rubber into a pile. It weaves them together at the microscopic level in these highly customized golden ratios, depending on what a specific organ needs to, survive its environment.
Yeah, the numbers in the sources really highlight this. For example, look at our tendons and ligaments. When you're sprinting or jumping, those tissues have to withstand massive tension to transfer force from the muscle to the bone.
They take a huge beating.
Right. And because they're built for extreme tension, they have a staggering 38-to-1 ratio of type I to type 3 collagen.
Exactly. I mean, if a tendon had too much of that flexible type 3, it would act like a bungee cord. Your muscle would contract, the tendon would just stretch out, and your leg wouldn't really move with any real force.
And that makes sense.
But contrast that 38-to-1 ratio with the human heart. The heart doesn't need to hold extreme static tension. It needs constant dynamic flexibility to beat continuously without tearing itself apart, right?
Well, yeah.
So its ratio is completely flipped. It sits at about 0.3 to 0.6, type Y to type 3. It heavily favors the flexible rubber over the rigid steel.
And it varies everywhere in the body based on the job description. Right? The liver is a perfectly balanced 1-to-1 ratio. The intestines are 2-to-1. A non-pregnant uterus is around 2 to 3-to-1. But I have to push back a little here.
Okay, go ahead.
If they are both just variations of a structural protein, why does a slight shift in this ratio matter so much? I mean, the biomedical reviews note that scar tissue ends up with a 5-to-1 ratio. Why does the body do that, and what are the actual consequences?
What's fascinating here is that a tissue's entire functional identity is bound to that precise ratio. When the ratio is disrupted, you don't just get like a different flavor of tissue, you get a pathological failure.
Really, like a complete failure.
Yeah, the sources explicitly link aberrant type Y to type 3 ratios to severe conditions. We see it in osteoporosis, where the bone matrix fails, periodontal disease, where the gums literally lose their grip on the teeth, and even in pelvic organ prolapse.
Because the tissue is losing its precise mechanical properties, is becoming either too rigid to function properly or just too weak to hold its shape against gravity.
Precisely. And when we look at scar tissue with that 5-to-1 ratio, it means the body is heavily biased toward the rigid type 1. When you sustain a severe injury, the body doesn't have time to carefully weave a delicate matrix of flexible type 3.
Right, it's bleeding, it has to close the gap.
Exactly, it panics. It needs to close the breach immediately to prevent infection, so it just dumps that dense, rigid type I collagen into the wound. It's an emergency patch job.
Which is why a scar feels physically stiff to the touch, and it doesn't move or stretch like the healthy skin around it.
Exactly.
So to see the real-world stakes of this architecture, the MIT research shifts our focus away from general organs and zooms in on one of the most mechanically violent environments in the human body, the lamina propria of the vocal folds.
Oh, the vocal folds are just a masterclass in bioengineering. Every time you speak, sing, or shout, those small tissues have to survive repetitive compressive forces, tensile strain, and cyclic impact forces as they slam together hundreds of times per second.
The structural breakdown in the dissertation is incredible. It notes that the flexible type 3 collagen is predominant throughout the entire lamina propria. It basically acts as the overall shock absorber.
Right.
But the rigid type I is strategically placed only in the superficial and deep layers.
And the deep layer is really where the heavy lifting happens. The research shows these densely organized bands of type I collagen anchoring the entire structure to the vocalus muscle underneath.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you look at this under polarized light microscopy, these dense bands exhibit something called birefringence.
Which means what, visually?
It means the physical structure is so highly ordered, so perfectly aligned and dense, that it literally refracts polarized light in 2 different directions. It glows brightly under the microscope, proving it has immense structural integrity.
The MIT dissertation actually measured this, which is wild. They noted that this high density gives the deeper layers immense shear strength, citing a Young modulus of about 2.9 gigapascals. Now I have to pause there. As a reader, 2.9 gigapascals is just a massive number. Can you translate that into the physical world?
Yeah. For context, a stiffness of 2.9 gigapascals puts that microscopic layer of tissue in the same mechanical ballpark as hard plastic or a solid piece of oak wood.
Inside a vocal fold, that sounds dangerously stiff.
Well, it would be if it were the entire structure. The researchers hypothesized this incredible stiffness, which is shown by a nearly linear stress strain curve, is due to the dense hydrogen bond network within the collagen molecules. It basically forms an unbreakable anchor.
Okay, I see.
But crucially, while the deep layer acts like a solid piece of oak, the superficial layer, so the very edge of the vocal fold that strikes the opposite fold, has a significantly decreased density.
Right, because that preserves the elastic characteristics required for small amplitude oscillation. It's the vibration that actually makes sound. I was picturing a finely tuned guitar string while reading this.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, you have the tuning pegs and the bridge acting as those rock-solid, high-density anchor points. But the string itself has to be flexible nylon to vibrate beautifully.
It's a helpful visualization, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually much more complex. Unlike a guitar string that you simply replace when it snaps, the vocal fold is a living instrument.
That's true.
It has to repair itself while it is actively being played, and when that repair process goes wrong, the results are pretty devastating.
The sources back this up with a fascinating study using a pig model to analyze vocal fold scarring. And they use pigs because porcine vocal folds are remarkably close to human vocal folds in size and, layered architecture. They found that in scarred folds, the elastin significantly decreased in the superficial layer, while massive amounts of collagen deposited in the deep layer. But wait, what happens when the tissue doesn't scar but just wastes away? The extracellular matrix research briefly mentions atrophic changes. How does the ratio shift in atrophic tissue within the lamina propria?
That's a great point. In atrophic tissue, we see a similar catastrophic failure, but by a completely different mechanism.
Okay, how so?
As the vocal fold tissue atrophies, usually due to aging or neurological issues, that delicate, highly flexible type 3 collagen is often lost or degraded way faster than it can be replaced.
Also, it just vanishes.
Yeah, and this aggressively skews that crucial ratio we talked about. You lose the flexible rubber matrix, leaving behind a stiffer, thinner tissue that's heavily biased toward whatever type I remains.
So it becomes rigid.
Exactly. It simply cannot oscillate efficiently anymore. The voice becomes weak and breathy. It's a complete architectural collapse.
So whether it is a scar or atrophy, the core issue isn't just having more or less total collagen. It's having the wrong architectural structure in the wrong place, effectively ruining the instrument.
Yes. Evaluating tissue health requires looking at the spatial organization and the ratio of the collagen, not just, taking a blunt measurement of total collagen levels.
So if these delicate tissues are this sensitive to architectural changes, how does our body normally prevent them from turning into chaotic scar tissue every time we experience, like, minor damage? I guess that brings us to the internal demolition crew.
Maintaining healthy tissue is a continuous, deeply precise balancing act. Synthesizing new collagen is only half the equation. The body must simultaneously degrade and clear out old, damaged collagen.
I found the mechanics of this demolition fascinating. The primary workers are MMPs matrix metalloproteinases. These are specialized enzymes that roam the extracellular space and literally cleave the collagen fibrils into smaller pieces.
Right, they chop it up.
Yeah, and then there's a secondary intracellular pathway. Cells like fibroblasts and macrophages come along, swallow those cleaved fragments, and just digest them in their lysosomes.
It is a highly regulated, tightly controlled system, but when that balance tips, we enter the realm of fibrosis. We see this in devastating diseases like pulmonary fibrosis in the lungs or hepatic fibrosis in the liver.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Fibrosis is so frequently misunderstood in popular culture. People tend to think of it simply as the body going rogue and overproducing collagen.
Which isn't the whole story.
Right. The sources reveal that in conditions like pulmonary fibrosis, it's often a case where the enzymatic degradation simply stops keeping pace with the production. It made me think of a massive construction site.
Okay, how so?
Like the bricklayers are working 24/7 hauling in materials. But the wrecking ball crew went on strike. Inevitably, the site just gets buried under a chaotic mountain of bricks.
That is exactly what happens. It results in a dangerous extracellular accumulation of fibrillar collagen. In the lungs, that means delicate air sacs that need to expand with every breath become encased in a rigid shell.
They literally can't inflate.
No, they can't. And what is vital to understand here is why active degradation is necessary. Normal, heightened collagen degradation is absolutely critical in preventing the formation of permanent scar tissue every time a tissue is stressed or injured.
The research maps this demolition failure to specific diseases with incredible precision. They look at a severe, penetrating form of Crohn's disease, specifically classified as Montreal B3.
Oh, this study was fascinating.
Yeah, and they didn't just find extra collagen in the intestines. They found a highly specific biochemical misbalance. There was heavily increased activity of an enzyme called MMP9, which was aggressively degrading type 3 collagen.
Yeah.
At the same time, the body was increasing the formation of type V collagen.
That level of specificity tells a profound story. In that form of Crohn's disease, the tissue loses its vital flexibility because the MMP9 is indiscriminately destroying the type 3 rubber, so to speak.
Right.
Meanwhile, the abnormal type V formation creates rigid strictures and fistulas that penetrate the bowel wall. It shows that disease isn't just generic collagen gone wrong. It's specific enzymes executing targeted strikes on specific collagen types, utterly destroying those delicate ratios.
So we have this internal wrecking ball system that is supposed to keep us healthy, flexible, and scar-free by clearing out the junk.
Yeah.
But what happens when outside forces hijack this system? I read that environmental and systemic factors can actually trigger our internal demolition crew to prematurely degrade our healthy tissues.
Yeah, the environmental impact is profound, and the most universally experienced external force is UV radiation from the sun, which is, the primary driver of skin aging.
I read that UV light doesn't just dry out the skin, it triggers a chemical chain reaction. What is actually happening under the surface?
It's essentially biochemical sabotage. UV light penetrates the skin and increases localized inflammation.
Okay.
And that inflammation triggers the release of a protease called granzyme B. Now, normally, your collagen fibrils are wrapped in a proteoglycan called decorin. Decorin basically acts as a physical shield, like armor for the collagen. But granzyme B specifically targets and cleaves that decorin.
Oh, wow. It literally strips the armor off the building.
Exactly. And once that decorin shield is gone, the raw collagen fibrils are exposed. They become highly susceptible to being chopped up by MMP1, which is one of the primary demolition enzymes we discuss.
So the sun isn't just damaging the surface. It is triggering your body's own internal enzymes to actively dismantle your structural scaffolding.
Yeah, it turns your own body against itself, architecturally speaking.
And it isn't just environmental factors. Systemic metabolic issues manipulate this demolition crew, too. The sources highlight that diabetes significantly increases collagen matrix degradation. The body is in a state where it's tearing down its own repair work faster than it can lay it down.
Which makes healing incredibly difficult.
Right. Interestingly, they noted a study on medical implants in diabetic models. Because the body's enzymes attack the scaffolding holding the implant in place, the devices frequently fail. But they found that by immersing the medical devices in tetracycline before implanting them, they could actually decrease this rapid resorption.
This is a brilliant application of understanding the mechanism. Tetracycline is an antibiotic, but it also has a secondary property. It happens to inhibit specific MMP enzymes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if diabetes is hyper-accelerating the demolition crew at the wound site, you coat the implant in a localized inhibitor to chemically freeze the wrecking balls, preserving the structural integrity of the tissue around the device.
But of all the forces mentioned in this stack of research, there is one that absolutely broke my brain. It's what the researchers call the paradox of mechanical strain.
Ah, yes, the micromechanical model of enzymatic degradation. This is where the physics of the body gets truly strange.
Okay, so a team developed a model to look at how mechanical loading, literally pulling, stretching,
Right.
and applying physical tension to a tissue, affects the enzymes that are trying to break it down. And they found that applying mechanical tension actually slows down or completely halts the enzymatic degradation of the collagen.
It's wild, right?
Pulling and putting stress on the tissue actually estetopias it from breaking down. That sounds completely backward. I mean, if I have a frayed rope, pulling on it with heavy tension is exactly what makes it snap faster.
This raises an important question. How does physical mechanical force override a biochemical enzyme? The answer lies in biophysics. Enzymatic degradation is an energy-activated process. Think of the enzyme like a key, and the specific spot on the collagen molecule it wants to cut is the lock.
Okay, I'm with you. Lock and key.
The enzyme needs a specific geometric fit and a certain amount of activation energy to turn the lock and cleave the molecule. But when you pull that collagen fiber taut, when it is actively bearing a load, you physically warp the shape of the molecule. The axial strain energy density is altered. You basically stretch the lock out of shape.
Oh, wow.
Because the physical geometry is distorted by the tension, the activation energy required for the enzyme to do its job skyrockets.
Meaning the enzyme key literally cannot fit into the binding site to cut it.
Precisely. The enzymes struggle to chemically process the collagen fibers because the physical tension locks them out. The structure becomes chemically resistant to decay precisely because it is under physical strain.
That completely redefines how you think about moving your physical body. It's not just burning calories or building muscle. You are manipulating your biochemistry on an atomic level.
You're literally changing the shape of your molecules.
So what does this all mean? We started by looking at the raw blueprints, the rigid steel of type I collagen and the flexible rubber of type 3. We saw how the exact ratios of those materials dictate whether a tissue functions like a heavy-duty tendon or a dynamically pulsating heart.
We saw how that intricate architecture plays out in the extreme, violent environment of the vocal folds, where dense anchoring bands and delicate vibrating edges allow for the miracle of speech.
Yeah, and how scarring, or atrophy, ruins that instrument by destroying the ratio of type 1 to type 3, replacing that flexible give with rigid mass.
Right.
We track the microscopic demolition crews, the MMPs, that are constantly tearing down old scaffolding to prevent us from turning into walking scar tissue. And we examined how outside forces like UV light strip away our collagen's molecular armor, while systemic issues like diabetes send the wrecking balls into overdrive.
It's a lot to take in.
It is incredibly clear that maintaining our physical structure isn't some static, permanent state. It is a lifelong, highly volatile balancing act.
And that balancing act is highly responsive to the mechanical forces we subject it to. Which brings us back to that mechanical strain paradox. I want to leave you with a thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If physical tension at the microscopic level literally warps the locks and shuts out the enzymes trying to degrade our collagen, could the specific physical ways we stretch, move, and mechanically load our bodies daily be the ultimate untapped anti-aging therapy? Like, if we strategically load our tissues, are we acting as a literal biophysical shield against the decay of our own bodies?
When you break down the mechanics like that, I feel like I need to go find a heavyweight to lift or, do some serious stretching right now. The bridge is constantly being rebuilt, but it turns out through movement, we actually have some control over the wrecking balls. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, Anybody.